most of us have, people say the girls have daddy issues. What we don't account for is that men have mommy issues too, and then vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
All these things are intertwined. If your relationships are not working out in the way that you would like them to, go and look at your relationship with your mother and your father.
Yeah, man, I was on Instagram the other day, actually your page, and I was scrolling through your reels, and I saw a reel you had that said relationships aren't real.
Your relationship foundation is not built on growth. You're in a transactional relationship in which, as the man, you're probably extracting sex and companionship, whereas she's extracting resources and attention. Every single time, this relationship ends in misery and tears, unless you avoid your feelings and go hook up with a bunch of people after your relationship. So what do you do to avoid this type of relationship? You establish what your values are, you embody them, and you do not compromise on them. For example, one of mine is honesty. One of my past partners did not value honesty very much, and I saw her lie to some other people. So then I thought to myself, if she's lying to other people, I wonder what she's lying to me about it. So I brought it up to her, and I asked her if she's lying to me about anything, and she said, of course not. Then what happened when the relationship ended? All of the hidden feelings, all of the dishonesty, it all came to the surface. If your values do not align, you're not in a relationship.
So I'm like, well, speaking on Instagram, man, tell us your Instagram and tell the people, what do you do?
So my Instagram is MightyBrad Official. I am a self-development coach. I primarily work with men. I work with men ages 18 to all the way up to their 60s, and we focus on building your confidence, overcoming anxiety, managing your relationships, communication, advancing spiritually, all of these self-development tactics, incorporating them into your life so that you can create the best version of yourself, whatever that means for you. And my job is to help you get there.
Okay, so you enjoy making men be a better man, right?
One of, if not my biggest passions in this entire life.
Okay, so I want to ask, I want to get a little personal. What sparked you to do that? What made you want to empower other men to be better?
It's a great question. When I was 13, I was diagnosed with depression. Dealt with that for about 3 years until I was 16 and stumbled upon a few YouTube videos that were self-development based. Guy's name is Elijah Long, still makes videos today. Awesome content. Go check him out. Talking about get in the gym, go for walks, meditate, start to talk to girls. I'm like, my life sucks. I should probably start to do some of this. So I did, and within a year, completely changed my life. My perspective on the world, my perspective on myself, insecurities, thrown to the garbage. Not all of them, of course. I'm still working that. Where I'm a human being, I still have insecurities that I'm working through.
Yeah.
Built up my confidence. Finally started to get out and meet women and talk to people in general, and started to make my life into what it is now. And so over the last 6 years of my life, I've been absolutely obsessed with the research behind self-development, constantly doing different incorporations and experimentation into my own personal life. And now I love to help men do the same thing for themselves, because we are very lost in our modern world and we have no idea where to go. So I want to help be a light in this world that we live in that's so complicated, to figure out what does masculinity really mean, and how do we start to dive into our essence again and create the life that we all deserve for ourselves. We just sometimes think we don't deserve.
Oh, you said a big word there, masculinity. That's something that society needs. That's something that we're lacking in this world today. Now, I like reading. Now, I read a book and it was like the roles are switching. The masculine has become feminine, and the feminine energy are now the breadwinners. They are the ones that don't need a man. They are the ones that, it seems like the roles flip. So do you agree with that? What do you see around in society?
So that's a great question. So obviously, I think before you and I were born, the way things operated, I think women were definitely taken advantage of. And it's like you were forced to be in the kitchen. You were forced to take care of the kids. And it's like nothing being forced upon anyone is ever good. But here's what we'll say about the energy dynamic that you're talking about. The women that are saying, I don't need men, and they're replacing men's roles, and then men are becoming weaker. Evolutionary biology has not changed, yet our culture has, and our culture is rooted against our biology. So women are unhappy, men are unhappy, and when I say unhappy, I mean like deeply unfulfilled. And so here's what happens. When we create a society of women that are outperforming men, here's that's the culture. Here's the biological aspect of it. Women want a man who is better than them. And when I say better, I mean like he's more intelligent, he can help guide her, he can help lead. Now there's exceptions to everything, but this is generally what a woman wants. And so this is why, even in our modern world, the women that are making so much more money than men, they want a man that makes at least the amount of money that she does or more. Why is that? Because she wants him to be better than her. And so the second you say that, men better than women, people instantly have it's outlandish, it's sexist, you can't say that. This is
Right.
biology. And and in saying that, it's not saying that women are less than men, because men absolutely need women. We wouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
doing anything in our lives if women didn't exist. I mean, the purpose of a man is to protect beauty. It's to protect women. And women aid to the men being able to protect and be the best versions of ourselves. If women didn't exist, we wouldn't exist, and vice versa. And so all of the women and the men saying, the men who are saying every girl is a whore, I can't find any good relationships, I'm just going to use them for their bodies, and the women that are saying I'm giving him what he wants and he's just leaving me, that's not what he actually wants. What a man wants and what a woman wants is deep love and connection on the most intimate level possible. When you have sex with people that you don't have an intimate connection with, you're creating a disconnect between you and them. It's like you think about, I'm going to get a little vulgar here if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about hookup culture, and a lot of people who are just having sex with each other, you'd say missionary, the sex position. You're looking at somebody deeply. You're having an intimate connection. A lot of people, when they do hookups, they're like, oh, I love doggy style. A part of the reason as to why you love it so much, because you don't have to look at the person. You don't have to interact with who they are. So you bust a nut, you let them go, you leave, you kick them out of your house, and you move on with your life. And so you're disconnected from the person. You're not actually sharing any intimate experience. You're not connected to yourself. And so if you're running away from women, if you're running away from men, what else are you running away from in your life? Absolutely everything, and most importantly, yourself. So we need to start to really get rid of the culture that we have of just using people for their body, because that's not what anybody wants. And so the women that are saying, oh, this is all men want, it's not what men want. It's just what they believe all they can get. And so that's what they do, and then vice versa with the women. So, but to get back to your original thing, the polarity, like masculine, energy-wise, masculine leads, femininity follows. Femininity is the chaos, masculine is the order. We support each other. And also, the feminine and the masculine are in each one of us. I'm a man. I have more masculine qualities than I do feminine, but I have feminine qualities. And so when I'm in a relationship with a woman that is very feminine, she allows me to tap into those parts of myself. She allows me to be a little bit more understanding, a little bit more considerate, a little bit more compassionate. Whereas if I was just in the world by myself, I'd be like, men, like the masculine is the animal, it's the chase, it's the dominate, right? So both of these energies are equally as beautiful, and they need to be integrated together, and that's what relationships do. And so the culture shift that we have is not working out for anybody.
Man, well put. So it seems like the main thing in a relationship is a connection. Of course you need a connection with each other, but don't you think that a connection with self is the most important thing before you get into that relationship, right?
If you can't connect to who you are, most people don't know who they are in any capacity. They haven't acknowledged the good parts of themselves, or they overhype themselves. And what we also don't do is we don't acknowledge the dark parts of ourselves, the dark part of our nature, the parts of us in which value our needs over somebody else's, or you do a little bit of unconscious manipulation in your relationships to get something out of someone, and you're being a little bit dishonest. Now, a lot of the times we don't really notice that we're doing these things, but it's important to bring them to the light because we are doing them in some realm and capacity, some more than others, of course. And when I say manipulation, I don't want anyone to go off the rails and be like, oh my God, manipulate. It's like everybody manipulates each other in relationships. We want things from people, and there's incongruencies in our values and the actions that we take. So we might say to ourselves, like, one of my values is honesty. I'd say that about myself, and I've said that for my entire life. And then I realized that now I never outright lie to a girl and just be dishonest with her about something. To my knowledge, I'm always honest with her. But if I unconsciously hide something, or I get a little bit uncomfortable and don't share and express my authentic self, that is dishonesty, because it's what I want to do, not incongruency with what is required for me to do to gain the deepest connection possible. But to get back to your original question of how important it is to know yourself first, you need to know who you are. Because if you don't know who you are, you don't know who you want, you don't know how you act, and you don't have any conception of what your values are in your relationship. So what oftentimes happens is you get into romantic partnerships with people who are not right for you in almost any way, shape, or form. Relationship goes to shit. You're unhappy, you're heartbroken, then you start to blame women and men for your problems. Say all the men are trash, all the women are this way. And it's like, no, you just had a bad experience or multiple bad experiences with certain individuals, because most people have not integrated any of these parts of themselves. It's like you bring up the word insecurity. We're afraid of that word. It's like, oh, I'm insecure. No, I'm not insecure. I'm not. Yes, you are. I'm insecure. Richy says everybody is insecure. We all have insecurities. If we didn't, we would not be human beings. And we like to pretend that the dark parts of ourselves are not existing in ourselves and our relationships. And so here's what happens. They don't go away. You push them down, you be inauthentic when you're in your dating experience. Then 6 months, a year, 5 years down the line, then you're married. Then that monster in yourself comes out. Now what? Now your partner starts to see how much of an angry, unintegrated individual you are. Then your marriage goes to shit. Then your relationship goes down the drain. Now you have kids. Oh my God. The burden that your kids are going to be going upon. Oh my God. You didn't think about that one, did you? And so when we push these uncomfortable parts of ourselves down and don't process and feel our emotions and be vulnerable with our partner and share those, we don't realize how much that shoots us in the head down in our relationship. And so most important thing for us to do is understand the dark parts of ourselves, start to develop a relationship with them, and understand that there's one of my mentors, Naftali Moses. Go check out his content. I was watching one of his lectures the other day. I'm in his private community, and he was talking about the animal and the spirit. The animal is like the dominate, the go, the dog in you. The spirit is, I'm content, I'm peaceful. Both of these are incredibly important. One on their own without the other is incredibly destructive. You're just like peace, love, fulfillment. You'll let people walk over you. You'll probably quit your job and become homeless. Now, if you're just an animal, well, now you're not aware of your emotions. There's no consciousness around you. You're just doing things, and then you can't be fulfilled by not being tapped into yourself. So the point is, animal and the spirit, develop a relationship with both of them. And I was explaining to one of my clients, actually, the call right before we hopped on here. Instead of having the angel and the devil on your shoulder, kind of fighting back and forth with each other, now the angel and the devil, they're not really angel and the devil, they're just two parts of you. They're now in here, and they're having a productive conversation instead of screaming at each other, do this or do this. And so once we develop a relationship with ourselves, then we really start to lead a fulfilling life in our personal lives and actually accept the romantic relationships that we deserve and not the ones that we don't. We just feel a little bit less lonely being in them, so that's why we do it. That's no foundation for a relationship. I've done it before, ended horribly, and for anybody who does that will continue to end horribly.
Okay, so I think I kind of get what you mean by a relationship is fake if you aren't fulfilling self first. But I would love for you to elaborate, because some people may think you're saying that the relationship is fake, or do you mean it's lacking depth when you say relationships aren't real?
So when I say relationships aren't real, I mean it's lacking depth. Yes, relationships are very real, and I think the point of men and women coming together is to be integrated with one another and to really gain that deepest intimate connection possible. When I say relationships aren't real, I mean there's no depth to our relationship. Like, for example, I talk to people, I say, what do you want out of a relationship? They say, I don't know. Or they say, I want somebody to care about me. I want somebody to cuddle me. I want somebody to spend time with and go on cute dates with. I want to have sex with somebody. It's like, hold on a second. Any human being can provide that to you. Right. So that's your standard for a relationship. If there's no more depth than that, you have no it's not that you have like a poor foundation for your relationship. You don't have a foundation. And that's what I mean when I say you're not in a real relationship, because you're not actually intertwined with each other. And so if you have left a relationship partner before, or they've left you, and you go, I hate my ex-girlfriend, I hate my ex-boyfriend, you were not in a real relationship. Because if you were, whether they left or you left, you'd still wish the best for them as an individual. And so you weren't in a real partnership if you hate the other person, if you're that resentful of them, right? A real relationship is open communication about everything that you're experiencing. And so the men might come on here and say, well, every time I've opened up to a woman, she uses it against me, or she leaves me, or she thinks I'm less than a man. That is not the type of woman you want to be around. Oh, but she's the love of my life. No, she's not. Because if she was, she wouldn't be doing that to you, right? A feminine, powerful woman would be able to hold the space for you. Would be like, hey, Brad, like, I hear you're going through this right now. No, I'm not saying as a man, like, cry your eyes out and tell your girlfriend how horrible your life is, because, yeah, that's going to most definitely make her not feel secure in the relationship or with you, or that you can protect her, and then she'll leave the relationship and find somebody else. But there's reflection there. Because when you talk about vulnerability, that's what people jump to. Like, oh, it's like, I can't do that. It's like, you don't have to cry in front of your woman. If it happens once in a blue moon, it's like, okay. But yeah, the thing that you're crying about has to be valid. And what I mean by that is all of your emotional experiences are valid. But if there's this one situation that you're just crying about and bitching about, and the answer is right in front of you, and you instantly bring that to your woman, and she can see that the answer is right there, you're just not doing anything about it, she's going to view you as less of a man because you're not doing anything, right? And so, but obviously, like, your parents die, and you go cry in front of your girlfriend. It's like, if your girlfriend views you as less of a man for crying because your parents died, she needs to be kicked out absolutely immediately.
Yep,
Oh
leave
my
her.
God. Oh my God. But yeah, essentially, most of us aren't in real relationships because we
Mm-hmm.
lack depth, exactly what you said. And so we need to start to establish, what are my values? What do I really want in a person? Whether this comes to, uh, I value someone who's really honest. I
Mm-hmm.
value someone who's open about every single thing. I value someone who's authentic about every part of themselves. I value somebody who presents everything to me, and we work through this together. For example, one of my biggest values is self-growth. Not self-growth,
Mm-hmm.
growth in the relationship, growing by ourselves separately and coming together and growing together. If that is not present in my relationship, it doesn't work. I've tried it before. I've tried it like 3 or 4 times before, and all of those relationships failed because I, in the back of my mind, knew what I wanted,
Mm-hmm.
but and then in one of my relationships specifically, I tried to change her. I was like, and what I would word that as, I tried to help her evolve. She did not want to, and so the
Mm-hmm.
relationship failed, right? And that, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, you can't change women. Oh, you can't change a man. It's like, no, you can't, but you can help someone evolve if there's incongruencies within them and they are focused on growth too. And so it's like, if you
Right.
guys are focused on growth in your lives, you come together, and when my insecurity comes up, my girl lets me know, and then I'm aware of it, like, oh yeah, I need to improve upon that. And when she has an overreaction to something, it's like, okay, let's dive into that. Okay, oh, you get so angry about this because your dad used to get mad at you all the time. Okay, I understand that. Like, let's work through that. Let me hold the space for you. Let's grow together. Let's overcome our insecurities together. Let's grow and gain the deepest connection possible. The reason we don't have real relationships is because we're not being fully open. And so there's these dark parts that come up and come out of ourselves, and we express them to our partners, and it's usually not in a healthy light. This comes out in screaming
Mm.
arguments, comes out in getting super upset with them, and on the extreme level, individuals who actually, you know, physically hurt somebody, which is the extreme side of things that we don't even need to touch upon.
Okay, okay. So you said that the reason we don't have real relationships is because we aren't fully open, right?
Yes.
So do you think society has a influence on this, on how we have a, well, let me retract. Do you think society has an influence on our perception when it comes to a real relationship? Like, what's causing people to not be open? What's causing people to be like, oh, I hate this person? Like, I feel like it's a certain type of energy that's in society that people have been shaped to, that program their mind to, and now they're projecting it into their relationship.
That's a great question. First off, we all grew up watching Disney movies. Disney
Mm-hmm.
movies project the ideal, like the most feminine woman, the most masculine man, and they really create this polarity. And and that's why we like Disney movies, because they show us parts of ourselves, their
Mm-hmm.
stories. And so we grow up having this perception of, this is how relationships should be. This is the ideal that we want to work towards.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, once you stop watching the movie and you come back to reality, you look at your parents, you look at your friends' parents, you look at everybody you know who's in a marriage and a relationship, and you see them yelling at each other, and you see them disagreeing on everything. You see them, all the dark parts of themselves come up. You go, well, I thought, like, the ideal for a relationship, like, this is what a perfect, healthy relationship is like on the Disney movie,
Mm-hmm.
but this is not matching up with what my parents do. And so your mind gets confused. It's like, well, we know the ideal is to be like these Disney movies, although it's a little bit unrealistic because they sometimes portray that, actually, I think Disney movies portray that there are challenges and that you work through those together in a partnership. But that's incongruent with reality. And what I mean by that is not that it's not possible in reality and that it's not currently happening, because it is with certain individuals. But if you look at statistics, most relationships fail. Most people aren't having sex anymore. Most marriages are ending in divorce. And so when this is your perception of life, it's like, that's how you go about your relationships. Our first example of a relationship is our parents. Most
Mm-hmm.
people's parents are divorced. And so what is the first example of a fulfilling relationship? It's not a fulfilling relationship. And so you see your parents fight, you see them argue, you see them disconnected, you see them not in a household together, and you got to travel between 2 places so they can see your parents. You go and see your parents, your mom's talking shit about your dad's talking shit about your mom, and now you're like,
Mm-hmm.
well, relationships just suck. And so then what do? You go in your teenage years, you mature a little bit, you become a little bit horny. Then you start hooking up with people. And then, because you're so afraid of your relationship turning out like your parents, you feel like you can't be open with people. And most of us have, people say the girls have daddy issues. What we don't account for is that men have mommy issues too, and then vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
All these things are intertwined. If your relationships are not working out in the way that you would like them to, go and look at your relationship with your mother and your father. And these are going to really bring a lot of light into how you act in your romantic relationships. You feel like people walk all over you. You feel like you can't speak up for yourself. Let's say you're a man. Did your dad speak up to your mother when she would yell at him? Oh, he didn't. Where are you getting that example from? Him. If you're a woman and your father would always talk down to your mother, and now you notice you're in relationships where your boyfriend is always talking down to you and you're taking it and you're not standing up for yourself and you're not leaving the relationship. Why is that? Because you witnessed that in your parents. So you unconsciously think this is how a relationship operates. And so toxicity has become the normal because most people's relationships are unhealthy, and we think it's okay. And this also goes along with the hookup culture. It's like we think it's okay to hook up with people and to have sex with people and then discard them. Nobody is ever fulfilled from that. That's why they keep doing it. That's why they keep needing somebody else to fill the void, because you're filling a void. It is not, I feel so fulfilled by hooking up with women. It's, I need something new. I can't, because that's the thing. Now, people think, here's where masculinity comes into play and how everything is so messed up nowadays. We think masculinity is getting every single woman that you can and taking action on that, right? Men pride you, and you get praise as a man for getting with more girls, right? And there's a biological aspect to this that we don't necessarily need to get into, because we can get into it a little bit. So, look, there's a lot of men in today's world that are very awkward. They're very, very weird. Very, women don't really find them attractive. So if you're a guy that can get girls, other women know that you're probably at least somewhat of a safe individual to be around. And so that's why certain women are attracted to men who have options. But to get back to that makes people very uncomfortable.
That's so true, man.
Yep. Oh, hey, but my point I wanted to make about the weak men, we think it's strong for a man to get all these girls. To have the opportunity is, yes, it creates some sort of you need some sort of potential and confidence within you to be able to do that. But it's weak to take upon all those options and to never be in a relationship because you're avoiding responsibility. You're avoiding to have to provide for a woman. And that is what leads to the downfall of our entire society. When you have a society of men who are just using women for their bodies, it's what men think they want, and that's what women think that men want. So it's like the certain women that are like, well, I had sex with him on the first date. Like, I gave him what he wanted, like, and he just left me. It's like, no, honey, that's not what he wanted, right? Because he's been doing that for women. What he deeply desires is for a woman to tell him no. For the guy that just hooks up with girls and just tries to stick his dick in her and it works every time, what his ego needs is for you to say, no, I don't want to have sex with you. Because then he's going to start to question himself, and maybe what I'm doing isn't fulfilling me. Maybe it's not fulfilling the women I'm with, and maybe it's not the way to go about my life. Because, you can hookup experiences the first few times you do them, they're fun, right? It's new, exciting, you're with a new person. Then it starts to morph into addiction, and you start to use people. So when you think you're a very powerful man because you sleep with all these women, you're actually one of the weakest men possible, because what would make you the strongest man is being in a fulfilling relationship and actually committing to somebody and helping them grow and allowing them to help you as well, because you don't have to face yourself by just hooking up with people.
Right. Let me add this. I need all my men that's watching this video. This is a great book that you need to buy, By Way of the Superior Man by David. I think his name David Data. I don't know how to pronounce that, but this is a great book, man. It will teach you how to be a superior man, right? And a big thing, like Brad just said, you're not the man because you're sleeping with all these women. Therefore, you might be lacking a little sexual desire. And this book here, it will it will teach you how to master the challenges of women, work, and sexual desire. That is what you need, man, to master everything.
I love that.
Now, Brad, when you said that we can go look at our parents for examples of what you want in a relationship, right? So, like, what signs would suggest if it's a good relationship or not a great relationship? Are there examples of things that we can see or notice?
First thing that comes to mind is the negative examples. So let's say you're a young woman who had a very poor relationship with their father. Your dad wasn't really there for you, not emotionally. He maybe wasn't there physically in the household. Or your dad can be there for you, like be there physically, but not actually there for you. Like, he's not having emotionally stimulating conversations. So you feel like you don't have a bond with your father. And so here's here, and then let's take the example even more extreme of a father who's a little bit emotionally like abusive. He kind of like talks down to you. He's very rude. What you'll notice, and kind of touched on this a little bit before, you'll notice that in your future relationships, there may be men that you're with that do this as well. And the reason as to why you stay in these relationships is because this is your only example of love and of men. And so what you deeply need is to feel loved and interconnected with a man. Your father did not give that to you. So you go into relationships with men that are similar to your father, hoping that you can get deep love and connection from them, which you usually don't, because these men are very disconnected from themselves, just like your father was. And so you don't get what you want, and you continue to get walked all over. And this goes for, men as well in other areas. And so you attract what you think is okay. And so what's most important to realize is that, like, how do you feel in your relationship? Do you feel powerful? When I say powerful, I don't mean do you feel like you're better than your partner, whether you're a man or woman. I mean, do you feel confident when you're around them? Do they make you feel good about yourself? Do you feel like you can have stimulating, deep conversations with them? Do you feel like you can talk about life? Do you feel like you can talk about your goals, not only without being judged, but by them holding the space for you and supporting you? Do you feel like you can open up about your past and have him or her not judge you for it, instead actually listen, hold the space, and fully try and understand, hey, why did you do this thing in the past? Why did this happen? And also understanding none of us are perfect individuals. And so going back to the growth, if your relationship is built on growth and you feel like you're growing together, that's how you know you're in a healthy relationship. If it's anything but that, you're probably not in a healthy relationship. Not to say that you can't morph it into that, but it requires two people to be able to morph it into that. And usually when you're so comfortable not growing for so long, one person usually isn't going to want to change, and that's going to breed a lot of issues. In fact, your relationship will end, even if it doesn't end tomorrow, and you stay in the relationship for another 5 years. It'll end at some point, or you'll stay together forever and be miserable forever. That happens plenty of times for all the people who deeply want to get divorced, but they're like, oh, we want to stay together for the kids, or like, we're just in this and we're financially bonded to each other, whatever the case is. And so there's a lot of there's so many incongruencies between men and women nowadays. But to get back to the things originally of look at how happy your parents are. If your parents aren't happy, don't use them as an example of how you should go about your relationships. And here's another thing: don't take their advice. But you're like, well, it's my mom and my dad, like I should take their advice, I care what they think. Yeah, but the relationship is horrific. They're divorced. And so here's where it gets very tricky, because sometimes the mother or the father will have very extreme views of, now, all right, we got divorced, never get married. You instill that in your kid from a very young age. Now, I don't think marriage itself is a failing institution. The reason it's failing is because of our culture, and because religion is dying. People don't care about anything spiritual. People don't care about anything else but themselves. And when we have a society that only cares about us and how we're doing, then we neglect other people. And how can you be in a romantic relationship and truly care for someone else if you're just focused on yourself all the time? And that's where we can even deceive ourselves with the self-growth stuff. Like, I need to focus on self-development. It's like, you got to incorporate that with your partner. And if they can't incorporate that with you, they're probably not right for you. Because, for example, for me, I very much value self-growth. And if my partner is focused on that, I feel incredibly disconnected from her. And then I invite her, hey, babe, you should go to the gym with me. Hey, we should go on a walk together. I bring up a certain topic. Hey, we should have this type of conversation. And the space isn't held for me. Then what? Disconnect, distance, relationship isn't working. Now, it's not to say that when these disconnects occur in your relationship and insecurities come up, that things are instantly over. That's not what it means at all. In fact, it is the beginning to a flourishing relationship if you are both mature enough to actually want a relationship. Most people, going back to our relationships real, most people don't want relationships. Most people want to feel cared for, to feel loved, to have their needs fulfilled without having to do anything for anyone else, without having to deal with the challenges of a relationship, without having to have differing opinions on big topics. You're different human beings. And this is where like I need to meet my perfect girl comes in. I'll accept nothing less. Like, you're just trying to have somebody be the exact version of you. But there's no growth in that, because if you have an exact version of you and you're egotistical, then your partner's egotistical, now you're not helping each other grow. right? It's like if
Mm-hmm.
you have someone with differing points of view, like if every single area of belief systems are completely off, like yeah, your relationship's not going to work because you disagree on absolutely everything. But you're different human beings, you're going to disagree on things. But what does this do? It gives you an opportunity for growth, because there's things and truths that I believe about this world currently that, and in my next relationship, I will get into, and my woman will say something that will spark something in my brain, and I'll think, oh, I need to change that point of view. Or, oh, I realize I'm wrong, right? And then your man will do that for you as well if you're a woman. Relationships are growth oriented all the time if you let them be. If they're not growth oriented, they're either staying stagnant or but when they stay stagnant, it only stays stagnant for a very short period of time until you're going all the way down until things get really rough, and then obviously the relationship ends.
Okay, you answered my question when you mentioned that just because a person isn't on the same type of frequency or the same type of things you're doing, that doesn't mean it's over. It just means that it's the beginning of a flourishing relationship, as long as the two people want a real relationship, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so they have to be committed. So how do you feel? Well, I noticed in your reel you mentioned transactional relationships. Now, do you think transactional relationships align with real relationships, or do they contradict it? Because I kind of feel like a transactional relationship is normal, because why would you do something and not expect it back? I'm not saying that you gotta expect it back, but come on, you're gonna expect the same energy from your partner, right? But
Absolutely.
what if this person is like, oh, I'm only doing this, now you gotta give this back, like you're only just doing it? You see how it can contradict it? So what
Yes.
do you think it aligns more or contradict the idea of a real relationship, or how should it actually go?
It's a great question. So it doesn't contradict it, because what it needs to be is intertwined with the relationship, and you
Mm-hmm.
need to understand what your relationship is to those things that I mentioned. For example, I think I was saying for men, if you're in a transactional relationship, you're probably unconsciously using her for sex and companionship, and as a
Okay.
woman,
Okay.
you're unconsciously using him for attention and resources, whether this is money
Mm-hmm.
being provided in other areas. And so these are important parts of real relationships, but you
Mm-hmm.
have to understand what your relationship is to this thing. Like for example, you can use, this has happened in my past relationships where my woman would use sex against me. It's like, oh, you need to do this and then I'll have sex with you. It's like, hold on, there's no organic desire there. This isn't working. There's something off. There's something incongruent. And so that's transactional, right? It's like, you need to do this thing for me, then I'll have sex with you. But it's like, you can't make sex transactional, because
Not at
then
all.
you're not having good sex. And then it's like, it's you're two people rubbing their bodies together, and there's no intimate connection. It's completely dead. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and then with your relationship with sex as a man, your relationship, and also sex, companionship, resources, essentially, these are intertwined in men and women. It's just kind of more common among those two particular, among men versus women, because it's like women are the gatekeepers to sex, men are the gatekeepers to commitment. And it's like, a woman can beg a man for commitment and he cannot give it to her, and then a man can beg a woman for sex and she cannot give it to him. It's like, that's how it usually works. And so we need to understand, like, yes, as a man, I really want companionship, I really want to have sex. As a woman, I want to be provided for in some way, shape, or form. I want attention from my man. Now, we all want attention, right? So like I'm saying, these things are intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to really fully understand that these are you guys coming together and having a clear understanding of why you're doing what you're doing, what it's providing for you, and what you're getting in return. For example, I was in a relationship that was a transactional relationship. And I don't want to I don't want to, now certain people are going to get mad about this, but let me say it. It was like a business transaction. It's like I got no return on my investment. And again, I didn't I spent so much money on her. I didn't spend it because I was like trying to win her over or anything like that. It was like, I really cared about her, so I wanted to spend money with her. And I wasn't getting anything in return. I felt like I wasn't getting any companionship. We weren't having sex anymore. And I noticed the more that I did, the more she pulled away. And so this is particularly common among men who are insecure with themselves, and the women who are insecure with themselves, is that women will use men, men will use women, and this goes really back and forth in a full circle. And so it's really important to look at, when I'm spending my money on my girl, is she appreciating it? The woman, when my man is giving me attention, is it good attention? Is he hyping me up? Is he there for me? Or is he just like giving me bad attention? Because like, there's bad attention. Like, he can talk down to you and tell you how much you need to do better all 24/7, and that's not positive attention. So there's positives and negatives to all of these aspects. And so, are you getting your return on investment in a relationship? Now, like I'm saying, these things are intertwined, but they are also very important components of your relationship. But you guys need to both be on the same page of why you're doing what you're doing. Hey, we're having sex because we want an intimate connection. Hey, we're giving each other attention because we truly care about each other. We're not giving each other attention because I want you to spend a little bit more money on me when I feel like I'm in a bad mood. It's like, because that's the unconscious manipulation that comes into place when we have insecurities within us. And this is particularly common among men and women who have issues with their parents, whether they have a poor relationship with their parents, whether they've witnessed their parents have a poor relationship. And so here's the thing. None of us have had a perfect childhood. We've all been through difficult times, and these have shaped us to show how we interact in our future romantic relationships. The most important thing to do is to understand, okay, I'm doing this thing in my relationship, and it's not doing us good. It's making my partner run away. And what do we do when we do something and then our partner runs away or they get a little uncomfortable? We think it's something within them. It's like, oh, I can't believe you're reacting this way. And so it's like, I can't believe you're reacting this way, not, wait, maybe what I'm saying I shouldn't be saying. Maybe what I'm doing I shouldn't be doing. And so every time you think about judging your partner for something or saying they're doing something wrong, maybe they are doing something wrong, but you need to equally look at yourself and say, what are you doing to contribute to the situation? Because you're doing something. Even in the relationships that I've been in, where the woman has done things more wrong than I have, I was not far behind. I still did I still did a lot of things that were incongruent. And we need to be aware of these things. Sex, companionship, attention, resources, all intertwined in a real relationship, but it's not just that. It goes a lot deeper. This is where the growth comes in. Facing your insecurities together, focusing on self-growth activities, go to the gym together, go on walks, make these the foundations for your relationships.
Now, I love the example you gave earlier when you mentioned the Disney movies, how they portrayed us growing up. They showed us the relationship with a man, woman, how it's supposed to be. But do you think that, because that's only one thing. Now, the media is media. That's just Disney. So with this media in today's world, they're not watching Disney anymore to look at a real relationship. All you have to do is scroll on your news feed. All you have to do is, it's all social media. And inside of that social media, you have other medias. So do you think the media sets unrealistic standards when it comes to a real relationship?
200%. You see everyday people who are men and women coming on and saying, you hear it all the time in the interviews online. The women that say, I need a man who's 6 foot, 6 figures, and whatever the other thing is. And I can't guarantee this, but social media is often a stage for people. People like to make bold claims. And I am very confident that plenty of these women that say that are accepting men that are not that in their lives. Because when a girl comes on camera and everyone in the comments goes, oh, she's a 2 out of 10. Like, well, how does she even want this for herself? The reason she's saying that on camera is because she's hoping that somebody's going to see that. And then, her Instagram is going to be linked, and then she's going to have that guy reach out to her. Oh, hopefully because what woman wouldn't want somebody who can, provide a lot of financial resources, who wouldn't be confident in himself, who wouldn't be good looking, who wouldn't be 6 foot tall. But there's also, what we're not understanding as men is there's women out here that don't care that much about that. It's like, and then we think, that's what masculinity is about nowadays, making as much money as possible. And money is great, and if your goal is to make as much of it as possible, do that. But if you're doing that for women, you're going to be attracting the women that are going to use you. I was talking to someone who was actually a millionaire, and he was like, you making all this money, like, you're not going to attract the nice country girl who has great values. Like, you're going to more of the time attract the girl. It's like, oh, he can take me on good dates. Oh, he could probably do this for me, right? And it's like, not to say that you have money, you're attracting these type of people necessarily, but if people know you have money, you're going to be attracting all sorts of people, and you need to be able to discern who to interact with and who to not. And this goes as a man and a woman, not just with money and financial. So, like, who are you into? What, as a woman, what type of men are you giving your time to as men? What type of women are you giving your time to? And you cannot complain that all the women in the world are bad or all the men in the world are bad when you keep giving unlimited attention to the men that treat you like shit and the women that don't give you what you want. And then you fulfill this prophecy, the self-fulfilling prophecy in your mind of, well, yeah, women are just whores, men are just trash, this, and that. And we delude ourselves all the time. And going back to your original point on the social media, everybody has an opinion, and most people's opinions are trauma-based. When the girl comes on and says, oh, the men, oh my God, she's crying. You feel so bad for her, right? Because you hear the story and the men who treat her like shit, and you actually feel bad. But now all the women who are in the comments are like, yeah, girl, you go. Yep, all the men are bad. And so, like, do you think as a woman, you're going to be in a fulfilling relationship with a man when you believe that all men are horrible? And as a man, when you think all a woman is just her body, you think that's going to attract a fulfilling feminine woman? And here's also what we're not understanding. We like to do a lot of shaming in our society. And it's like we shame people for, I mean, we were talking about like hookup culture and how we shouldn't do that. And like oftentimes we shame people for having too much sex and stuff like that. And so here's what also has come to my attention recently, and one of the coaches that I've been working with is, as a man, this gets a little bit dark, so everyone buckle up your seatbelt.
Let's get ready, y'all.
The things that you are denying in a woman, or what you truly want. For example, you're like, I don't like crazy women, but you're with a crazy woman. And the reason for this is because she allows you to experience a part of yourself that you've never experienced before. And, you know, a lot of people, one of my mentors, Naftali Moses, who I mentioned before, he likes to talk about how a lot of men think that the woman that is the wife and the mother to your children is different than the woman that you have good, amazing sex with. And he explains how this is very backwards, and your relationships will never be fulfilled by having these things. And so this is where the dark nature comes into place of, you're like, oh, well, my girlfriend, like I was with the crazy girl, and now I'm with the girl who's like, I want to be the mother of my children, but it's like, we just don't have good sex. It's like, because you're not bringing out that part of her. Now, she has not shown that to you, and maybe she doesn't even know it's in her yet because no guy has stimulated that part of her. And we can get into the men's side of things too. Like, every woman has the beautiful, caring, compassionate mothering in her. And she also has the dirty little whore inside of her. And so what we like to do as men is shame women for like, oh, she's a whore, she's getting with these guys. Or we feel a little bit uncomfortable when she acts that way towards us in a relationship because we have insecurities. We're like, well, what if she leaves me one day? It's like, okay, she's doing this for me, then she's going to do it for another guy. Or if she's like this with me and she's good at sex, it means she probably had sex with a bunch of guys. And so there's all of these judgments, right? It's like, but there's a part of you that wants her to be that for you, right? And so we're disassociating from ourselves as men and not understanding and integrating that we want a girl who's very caring and like that, and we also want her to do these dirty things for us, right? And then women might say like, oh no, like that's just not who I am. It's within you. You just haven't had someone bring it out to you. And also, when you say that that's not who you are, it's because you probably have some level of shame around it, or it's like, you know, because that's what we do in society. We shame women for having sex in general. You know, it's the body count conversation. If she has over 20 bodies, they won't date her. Now, I agree with that because we can get into the biological aspects of this.
Right.
Women, and again, everybody likes to say, oh, well, what about the men? Calm down for a second and let me finish. People often like to say, like, anytime you say women, they're like, oh, what about the men? The men are doing it too. Or you say men, like, oh, the women are doing it too. It's like, hold on a second. Let's round out the conversation. On average, women release, I believe it's 3 to 4 times, maybe it's even more. We'll have to look into the further statistics about it. Release the bonding hormone. They call it the love bonding hormone called oxytocin, which is released significantly more during sex for women than it is for men. And so men can have more casual sex than women do with less consequences. And this is not saying that it's justified in that as a man, you should be doing that. But in terms of your emotional capacity and the baggage that you're taking to your future relationships, there's a little bit less when a man has 5 bodies versus a woman does. But also, just because a woman has this or a man has this doesn't mean that like, oh, they're automatically this, and it's like I can never talk to them, because what is, you have to ask, like, and get to the bottom, like, what is, okay, a girl has had, like, let's say you're a guy who's like, I will only date a girl that's a virgin. And you meet a girl who has slept with one person that's been her last boyfriend. Instead of instantly shaming her and throwing her to the curb, you need to dive into, like, what was that like? Like, what caused her to have sex at the point that she did? And was it an intimate connection? Okay, it was. Okay, it was only with one person, and it was with her fulfilling relationship at some point. And it's like, okay, maybe that's not so bad. Maybe my justification for this isn't fully in tune. And so we often, and because here's the thing, we judge people for the past mistakes, and we've had plenty of past mistakes too. And so we're going throughout the world. I can't believe this girl's done this. I can't believe this guy's done this. It's like, you've done that too. Yeah. And so I've even noticed this incongruency within myself in the past of, I was judging women for the amount of people they slept with. And I've only slept with people that I've been in an intimate connection with. But I did the general kind of hooking up with people a few years back. And it's like, I noticed, okay, I'm judging people, because it was after I realized it wasn't for me and that it wasn't fulfilling, I transcended out of that. But then I started to look down upon people who did it. But then it's like, hold on a second. I did this. And now I'm shaming people for doing it? Incongruency here. And so you can't be shaming people for the things that they want, because all of this is within us. Every human being is horny. And see, here's what the Disney movies get wrong, is they don't incorporate that dark part of ourselves. That part, because it's like, men have the ideal. Like, men have an unrealistic ideal. It's like, you think that you want a girl to not have that dark part of her that's like her incredible sexual nature. It's like, you feel like you on the surface level, logically, you're like, I don't want that. But deep down you do, because going back to the conversation earlier of what Natalie Moses was talking about, the animal and the spirit, your animal wants you to be dominant in the bedroom, and your spirit is like, all right, let's intimately connect. These things have to be intertwined. You can't have one without the other. That's why hookup culture, when it's like men and women who are so deeply traumatized just sleeping with each other, and the man is like, I need to feel dominant, and the way I feel dominant is by having sex with a girl, and the woman is like so disconnected from her femininity that's like, the only way she feels being submissive is by being under a new man every other week, right? And it's like, all these are traumatic things within us, and they're also like, they're insecurities, they're dark parts of ourselves that we have to start to face. We need to forgive ourselves, and we also have to forgive other people. Now listen, if you're a man and a girl has slept with 100 men and now she's like, I've changed, okay, I'd say probably that's a little too many people. But it's like, she slept with a few people, and the people she slept with have been intimate relationships. It's like, why are you so hard on her? Like, she's not going around. You're afraid of the woman that's going around sleeping with all these guys, and the woman you're currently encountering isn't doing that, but she's had sex before, and now you're judging her for doing that. It's like, hey, she's a human being too, and she likes sex just like anybody else does. And so the sexual shame thing is something I've been diving into a lot recently, and realizing incongruencies within myself, like, oh, I'm judging people for this. And so understand that everybody has some level of the past. Obviously, it gets to a certain point where it is a little bit too extreme. It's like, oh, I went through my whole, like, my friend was like, yeah, I started dating this girl, and she slept with like somewhere between 5 and 10 people in like 2 months. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's not a good sign. Here's what happened here. He said she slept with 5 or 10 people within 2 months. And now it's the 3rd month, and she's talking to me, and she says, well, you have to wait to have sex with me. Right. So this is a very interesting dynamic here, because what she's doing is she's afraid that, because what those men did is they used her for her body, because that she allowed that to happen. And now she finds my friend attractive and an actual quality potential partner. So now she's testing him, not in a positive light. She's like, I'm going to withhold sex from you to see if you're going to use me. And it's like, hey, I'm not saying have sex on the first date, but I am saying that you can use sex as a weapon. And that's exactly what she did. And that's how you're starting your relationship, based on manipulation, based on lies, based on not being honest with somebody. And it's like, if that's how your relationship is starting, if you notice all these incongruencies at the beginning of your dating experience, probably not going to work out.
Not at all. It sounds like a wasted relationship, waste of time then, man.
See, it's interesting, because I was in a relationship with a crazy girl once. And this was actually after I thought I would never be in a relationship with someone like that. Also, this is something I said to her towards the end of the relationship. I'm like, well, if we're going to end it now, like, what? Like, we just wasted our time. And she said to me, she's like, no, it wasn't a waste of time. And at first I didn't agree with her, and I do now in part. Now, let me explain. The reason it wasn't a complete waste of time was because in that relationship, she disrespected me and I put up with it. In all my previous relationships, I didn't put up with that. And so, but also my previous relationships, and like the women I was with didn't really disrespect me. Like, they cared about me and respected me. And so what this relationship did with this girl is it allowed me to realize an incongruency and insecurity within me of, oh, I'm feeling at lack right now. I'll jump through these hurdles to try and get companionship from her, to try to get sex, or to try to feel something and be connected to this girl, and then never get it. And so the reason why it wasn't a full waste of time is because it allowed me to realize something within myself that if it didn't come up then, probably would have came up in the future. And so but I hear your point, and I agree with it too. Like, it's like in my philosophy right now, it's like 50-50, because you learn everything in life is a learning experience. So it's like from that relationship, I fully realized, okay, this is the type of woman I cannot be with. But it took being with her to fully realize that, because this was the incongruency and insecurity within me. If you asked me a year ago, before that relationship, and listed out the qualities of her and the red flags that were present that I noticed from the beginning, and you said to me, would you ever date a girl like this, Brad? I would say no, absolutely not. But I did. And so revealed something within me that I needed to work on. So it was a beautiful, beautiful, and incredibly difficult self-reflection experience, because it's like, I thought I had my shit to put together. I thought, I'm Brad, I have all these values. I'm not going to put up with bullshit. What I do, I put up with bullshit. And so it's like, this is like, everything comes full circle. I think in analyzing all your past relationships, figure out obviously what your partners did wrong, so you look out for that in future relationships, and also analyze the incongruencies within you, what you've done wrong, and why you react this way to these situations, and why were you so heartbroken, and what was it about this person? Was it just attachment, or was there something deeper? A lot of the times it's just attachment, and then that's why 6 months go down the line, you're like, oh, I don't even know why I even cared about her, right? It's like, because you were just attached, but that wasn't a real relationship.
Now, you gave many gems and many steps for people to take, but are you able to give, for the men and women that's watching this, are you able to give them steps to take the assets and ensure the authenticity of their relationships?
Authenticity of their relationships.
Like, what can the men and women that's watching this, what can they do to make sure it's right, make sure it's real? Because you said they can look at their parents, for example, they can analyze their self, and not try to bring baggage from the past relationship. That's one thing they can do, I know.
Look at yourself and establish what your values are. Go on Google, say list of values, and then look at all of them and establish which ones resonate with me the most. And when you're in your early dating experience with someone, talk about that with them and see how they react to it. Read their body language, see what their response is. If they say, oh yeah, I really value honesty too, like I always want open communication, blah blah blah, or they're like, oh, I'm okay with white lies sometimes. It's like, okay, there's something that's probably not going to work. And so know what your values are. Because if you don't know what they are, then you're not going to establish any foundation for your relationship, and it's going to be built on nothing. So when times get difficult, they get very difficult, and you guys are just arguing and you're getting nowhere because you don't understand each other. And more importantly, you don't understand yourself. But also on the conversation of kind of the baggage conversation, it's worth realizing that we need to do the healing on our own times from our past relationships, but also understanding that there are going to be some things that come up in our future relationships. But to give ourselves a little bit of leeway for that. And but most importantly is, like, when those things come up, you tackle them, you confront them, you have a conversation about it, because the worst thing to do is to let it run your life, because then it's like, okay, like the like, let's say the woman who had a poor relationship with her father, and her father always yelled at her. Now she notices herself yelling at all of her partners in her relationship. I went on vacation about a month ago and did some interviews down in Florida, interviewed a bunch of men, different women. And one of the women I was talking to said how she was yelling at her boyfriend. And then one day he said, you can't do that anymore. And she's like, I stopped yelling at him. And I said, why? And she's like, I mean, I care about him and I respect him too much to like this relationship to end. And so she realized the incongruency within herself. And I didn't ask
Mm-hmm.
her about her childhood, but I'm sure it stemmed from there. And so as a woman, you might notice that you yell at your partner because your father yelled at you. So it's like, that's what unconsciously you're like, this is what men deserve, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is where it gets really dark, because when you're a woman and you embody the I hate men, when you're a man and you embody the I hate women, there's a lot of shit going on internally. So the first thing for you to do is to make sure that you're dealing with your insecurities, that you're facing them, that you're understanding yourself, and that you're building the confidence to integrate this with yourself and fully understand yourself. And so when they come up in your relationships, to deal with them, to confront them, and to, in certain areas, do the healing so they don't even come up in your relationships. But most important thing to keep in mind always, like been the theme of this conversation, your relationship needs to be focused on growth. If it's not focused on growth, it's focused. If it's not going here, it's going here. And you might not notice that tomorrow. And you might have been you might be in a relationship for 3 years. You might have known where you are is here, and you think you're up here, only to have to watch this podcast and realize, oh, I got a lot of shit to deal with my girlfriend. So these are all the parts of ourselves that we refuse to acknowledge. Your first step to fulfilling a relationship is acknowledging them on your own time, and talking to your partner. Radical honesty, extreme authenticity. And I don't want to really use the word extreme. It's like figure out who you are. And when you know who you are, you bring that to your relationships fully. You don't leave details out. And what this allows women to feel in your presence as a man is safe. What it allows women to feel, or what it allows men to feel when a woman is bringing this, is like, this girl could be right for me. There could be something here, right? And it's like, we could fulfill one another and help each other in this life of ours on earth that is only temporary. Most of us are not in real relationships, and we need to change that so that we can become the most fulfilled individuals possible. And so, overall, focus on yourself, and focus on yourself in your relationship on your own time, and focus on yourself with your partner. And you might say to yourself, "Oh, it's a little uncomfortable. I've never done that before." Start to look at it. Start to look into it. And you might think to yourself now, I don't need that in my relationships. Like, I'm fine with just the cuddles. I'm fine with like the sex. I'm fine with the dates. You're not. That's why you made it this far in this podcast. Because if your relationship was so perfect, you were facing all these parts of yourself, there would be no reason why you would be watching right now. Most of us need this information. I know I did only a few months ago. And having discovered and really focusing on all of this knowledge and incorporating it into my life has been an absolute blessing. And for all the audience members, as soon as you guys can start to do this in your life, you're going to be leading a very fulfilling life. But I also want to say it's going to be very uncomfortable at first. It's very uncomfortable to have spent 15, 20, 30, 50 years of your life not looking at yourself, and to finally look at yourself in the mirror and say, oh, it's not just my relationship partners that have been messing everything up. There's actually things that I'm doing too. There's actually things that I need to work on. There's actually things that I'm really uncomfortable with that I haven't brought up in my relationships, and that it's led to the downfall, right? And so look at yourself, establish what your values are, make sure that your partner has values, and make sure they align with yours. If they don't, your relationship will not work. If your values do align, nothing in life is guaranteed that things work out, but you're much more likely to have a successful relationship because you actually align on something. Most of our relationships, we think we're here, we're really here, and there's walls in between us. And you're always trying to get through to your partner. Hey, let's have this conversation. Hey, let's do this. Wall. They're on the other side. They're protecting themselves. It's a coping mechanism. These are all based on our childhood, our past experiences, past men and women that have hurt us. Acknowledge the bad men that you've experienced. Acknowledge the bad women that you've experienced. And say, okay, I don't really want that. And so stop accepting it in the people that you meet. A lot of us say, I don't like it when a woman does this. I don't like it when a man does this. And we accept it in our next relationship. Stop doing that. Stop accepting people. And because here's the difficult thing. You have options now, right? You might be, or you might be listening to this like, I have options. I just can't find good people. Or like, I feel like I don't have options. You have options, and you don't have values for yourself now, and you start to date authentically. A lot of those options are going to fly out the window because most people do not have values. And another thing, and I keep mentioning Naftali Moses because he's one of my mentors, and I love his stuff. he talks so much about like for just bringing your authentic self to the conversation. You do that, you feel so much more secure. We've been talking about insecurity the whole time. You feel very secure in yourself when you know who you are. You feel very secure when you can bring yourself without feeling judged. And you know if you know who you are when you bring yourself to the conversation and someone doesn't accept you for that and you're okay with that. When you're not okay with them not accepting you, then there's a lot of stuff to work within you. But if you know who you are and like, this is who I am, this is who I'm bringing, and someone doesn't accept me, that's fine. We're not on the same page. Cool. Goodbye. I hope you have a great life.
Right.
But I need somebody that's gonna be right for me, and everybody needs to do that. It's like when you notice, hey, this guy's not right for me. Got to cut the cord, and this is difficult. So difficult. Oh my God. I in all of my past romantic relationships, I've never left someone because I'm always the one who's trying to fix things. I'm always trying to make it work, even when I know it's past the point. And so that was something within me to work on. So as for final pinpoints of where to start, really start to look at yourselves and build with your partners.
I agree with you. Everything you said, it's all about growth, whether you're in a relationship or not, whether you have a partner or not. You are in a relationship with yourself, and when you are in a relationship with someone, you have no choice but to grow. Either you grow together or you grow apart. Like Brad said, the growth here or here, like you're gonna grow anyway. If it's not right, then it won't be. So yes, that's a wrap for today's episode. Huge thanks to MightyBrad for joining me and sharing such deep insights into this journey of self-discovery and growth in relationships. Today, we talked about how relationships, they really start with understanding and nurturing yourself first. You come first. You matter. Put yourself first, because when you don't put yourself first, I don't feel like the relationship isn't real. It's not truly authentic when it's not. Your relationship is not authentic until you tap into your own self-love and personal growth. So remember, the most important relationship you will ever have is with yourself. Thanks for watching, MightyBrad. You have anything to let the people know?
I appreciate everyone listening through this entire episode. I hope you guys got a ton of value and knowledge. And yeah, we linked to my Instagram at the front. So if you guys want to have a conversation about something you're going through, you want to learn or dive into anything deeper that we were talking about, feel free to shoot me a message.
Peace and blessings, everyone. Yes, sir.
Peace out.